What's up, YouTube? It's Age of Sigmar's top Warhammer villain here, Stuart Ironjawz from McCown, and today we have, of course, the post-fac tier list show. Because what would an Ironjawz channel / video be without a tier list? Okay, now I've actually managed to play 8 games since the balance update. Now this is a lot by me standards, but I want to say, now some of my complaints from the video where I went on my full villain arc and complained about everything that the Games Workshop has done ever, a lot of them have not been addressed. However, there's been several aspects about the game that have changed that I really enjoy, and I want to give sort of my insights on where I think the meta is going. Is it going to be a shooting meta? Is it going to be a combat meta? Is it going to be a monster meta? We're going to find out. However, the title of this video is going to be Warhammer Age of Sigmar, The Rise of the Dragon. And that is because I believe, possibly, we are heading towards a meta with some more monsters in it. And I'm going to talk about why in this video. But there are certain preeminent monsters that have seen some nice changes. You're going to see a lot of these around. And I think you're going to see possibly some shooting that will respond to that. And that will be sort of the meta that I'm expecting we're going to go towards. So, let's get into it. So we're going to go faction by faction. Now, I have a few tabs up here. We have, not that one. Here we go. We have all about the points changes here. So Tzeentch is up first, so let me get this. And we're going to go through, we're going to see what's changed, talk about if any of that's significant, and maybe actually we go, it's probably easier if I just go page by page, yeah. So let's start with cities then. Apologies for that. It seems probably that's a bit easier, and this is for, alright, I'm just going to go not full screen because this is going to hurt my brain. Okay, so, apologies for that, but let's go. So Cities of Sigmar, alright, so we were kind of in a shooting army space with the Cities of Sigmar. You were seeing lots of Fusiliers everywhere, and Fusiliers got a little bit of a change, which we'll talk about over here. So Fusiliers got a change where, I'll just zoom in a bit so we can see this. You can now pick either a ranged weapon profile in a fortified position. So they have one shooting profile, which is shoot in combat, and one which is shoot at range. And this means that now when you're tagged in combat, you're going to be able to use the shooting combat profile, because before it used to be if you were fortified, you had to use the non-shooting combat one. Now you can always choose if you're fortified. So that means you can kind of stand there as like a bulwark unit, and if you get charged, you can be on your 4-up save, ignoring round 1 because you're fortified, and then have the 5-up ward from the order. And that makes for a very tanky unit. Okay, now Cities of Sigmar in general, one thing that's quite negative to them is the changes to the priority target. Okay, so for those who don't know, maybe we can talk about this. So priority targets clarified so that if you shoot either the general or the general's honor guard that's within 12, you get +1 to hit and wound. So not just +1 to hit and wound against the general's regiment. Now just +1 to hit a wound against the general and his guard if they're within 12. Okay, so that means if you are a long-range shooting unit, shoots from a really long way away, so something like, I don't know, 20 sentinels, you're going to get less use out of your priority target. But if you're something like, perhaps 6 long strikes that actually might be within 12, then maybe this is less of a problem. Okay? So, yes, that's where we're at with Honor Guard. Okay, so because of this, you're going to see a lot more people run the -1 attack bodyguard, okay? Because, already that was an incredibly strong ability, and you're going to see that more and more now. And that is a major negative for Cities of Sigmar, because so many of these units, you think of your hammerers, your executioners, all your hammers, basically, that are melee, rely on 2 attacks or 3 attacks weapons, right? And that means that if you go in, you're either going to get, either your damage is a third or a half, okay? Whereas if your hammer is something like, I don't know, like a Kragnos, the -1 attack doesn't mean as much as it does for these units. So Because the percentage decrease of your output is so big, due to the -1 attack, I'm expecting that the melee aspects of this book will be quite a bit weaker. However, Fusiliers are one of the few units that's a little bit less hurt by the priority target changes. Mainly because what you can do instead is just give them +1 to hit and wound from your all-out attack, and then you can give the other unit the same thing from a prayer. So you can still have 2 units that are on +1 to hit and wound. Now the other units will always get +1 to hit as well from the unit that the Fusel Major on Ogre Warhawk shoots. So this means that the army is going to be pretty relatively unscathed by at least the priority target changes, but the -1 attack thing just means that I think where you're going is you're going to spam Fusiliers, and that's going to be the army. Alright? You're going to spam Fusiliers. None of the other points changes here I don't think mean anything. Okay, Flagellants went down. The shitty bombers went down. I don't think any of that means anything. Neither did the heroes. But the Fusiliers change ultimately means, I think, something like 80 Fusiliers, Callus and Toll, Pontifex, you know, some dudes with the hunter dudes, Wilder Corpse Hunters. You're going to see them as well. An army of this sort of thing is going to be incredibly strong. Maybe some cavalry if you feel like it. So I think that quite comfortably, Cities of Sigmar, for me, lies somewhere between this A and B tier thing. After this change, I think we'll go B. The damage is still relatively low. What this army excels at is durability, especially now. But I would expect as a Fusilier spam build, they're interesting. The rest of the book, I think, is quite weak now. Okay, so that's Cities of Sigmar. So next down the list in order, we have, I believe, Daughters of Khaine. Okay, now these got pretty minimal changes, I would say. So some bad heroes went down. The Shrine and Kruthusa, I still think probably you will not take them. Maybe Kruthusa is sort of takeable, but the Bloodwrack Shrine I do not think is takeable. Then the Live Takers and Avatar Khaine, I don't think that matters, and I don't think that the 2 infantry variants that went down are good. So I think you still are going to take the Bladed Bucklers, Sisters of Slaughter, and the Witch Elves with the paired weapons. Okay, now, a lot of the builds we were seeing with Daughters of Khaine were kind of using a lot of infantry, so a lot of these, I think the Sisters of Slaughter with the Bladed Bucklers are quite a good, like, tanky infantry unit, and then as a hammer we have the Witch Elves with the paired weapons. You also saw sometimes a reinforced unit of Bloodstalkers, though I'd expect to see that less with the priority target changes. Instead, I'd expect that you're going to see lots of big blocks of infantry, and maybe some Doomfire Warlocks. So one thing that's interesting about this army is I think overall it's a bit weak to shooting. So you look at something like the Sisters of Slaughter with Bladed Bucklers. Okay, we have -1 to hit, but it's only in combat. And then I believe the Heart of Khaine as well is, yes, just combat attacks. Okay, so a lot of the durability that you're getting is actually only in combat. So shooting, if it is nerfed, should be good for Daughters of Khaine. But overall, I think it's safe to say that this is, again, I think is similar spot as Cities of Sigmar. This is a pretty solid army, but it's not, I don't think it's at the top of the meta. I would put it in B. Absolutely playable, just kind of run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-pack army. But has some strong abilities. Okay, Fyreslayers. So one thing about Fyreslayers, so I want to go through the changes first. There were a couple of changes here that might mean something. So I think the, what did I want to say? The Flamekeeper going down 10 probably doesn't entirely move the needle, and the Runesmarter and Maggotkin I don't think is good. Yeah, I don't think there's probably too much in here that's a big change, to be honest. It's like the best War Scrolls in here are the Runemaster, the Runefather, and Magmadroth, and like the Runesmiter. So these 3 are not getting changed. And the Runefather and Foot as well. Probably doesn't... The Grimhold Exile is terrible. The Doomseeker for 90 maybe sees some kind of play. I don't think the Battlesmith is good. Yeah, there's probably not too many significant changes here. And in terms of the rules... they just clarified how the Rune Sun works. So, basically no changes for Fyreslayers. Now, Fyreslayers I would have put as a firmly B tier army, and then the question for me is whether the generic changes to the game have been positive for Fyreslayers. So overall magic, we're going to expect it is a little bit worse, okay? Because we have the manifestations changing, so that basically if you flood the board with manifestations, it becomes much harder to, you know, keep them on the board. Your opponent gets bonuses to banishing now, right? So that means an army like Fyreslayers, who was rather afflicted by the manifestation problem, because, okay, we can get like one unbind, and then you have to spend a prayer to banish, which is terrible, right? So you'd expect with Fyreslayers, lower magic is good, okay? And also, I would say lower shooting is good as well, right? There's going to be less... Well, I don't know if there'll be less shooting overall, but shooting in general is less powerful now, alright, with the priority target changes. However, Fyreslayers could already build in such a way where they're often high drop, and this means that the army, it wasn't actually that affected by priority target to begin with. And actually, one unit that they did use a lot that was solid was this unit here, the Auric Hearthguard, okay? And this unit is quite negatively affected by the loss of priority target. So I would expect they've taken a pretty significant hit. However, I would say Fyreslayers is still, again, a solid army. Again, these three are pretty honest sort of armies. But Fyreslayers, I would say of this three, is probably the weakest. I probably will put it... It will kind of drift down towards the bottom of B. But it still has some great abilities. I could do a whole video on Fyreslayers, but basically the problem with them is that everything is incredibly telegraphed. So you go like at the start of the turn, like, I'm going to do strikes first this turn. Your opponent goes, alright, well, I just won't charge you then. And then it's like, oh shit. And the other problem with Fyreslayers, right, is with your rune abilities, I feel like you want to be going first in every turn, but you're not going to get the choice if your opponent is lower drop. So, yeah, or sorry, you want to be going second is what I want to say. The reason is so if your opponent goes first and you do the strikes first thing, you're going to get it for one of their turns and one of your turns. Whereas otherwise you only get it for their turn and then it's shit, right? So you want to go second with Fyreslayers, which is hard because you're high drop. So I think the moral of the story is Fyreslayers need to find a way to construct a low drop list. Now the priority target thing is less of a worry for doing that. There needs to be a way to do that. I just don't know how easy it will be. Because basically you have to go, I'm taking 2 Rune Masters. This is what I would do, right? 2 Rune Masters maybe, or a Rune Master and then maybe a Rune Father or a Magma Droth or something. And then you need to fit the rest of your army in 2 drops, which might be hard. So, that's where I'm at with Fyreslayers, but overall, army is like here. Okay. Lumineth Realm-lords. Alright, so one of the big bads that I was complaining about a lot has been nerfed a lot, okay, which is good. So, you can't get -1 to hit if you're also affected by Power of Hish, and you didn't charge. And the points changes as well were significant, so don't know what happened to Deepkin. We'll come back to Deepkin. Here we go. Alright, I skipped a few armies there, but we'll come back to those. Points changes are significant, so the biggest changes are Wind Chargers going up 20, the Foxes going up 10, and the River Blades going up 20, and the Dawn Riders going up 20. So pretty massive changes as far as points go. You expect most lists are going to go up somewhere like 100 points. However, I want to get this off my chest, alright? I know they won a few events for doing well. Wind Chargers are a fraudulent unit. I'm sorry, but like, I don't think they were ever good. I think that the Foxes were always great, the Dawn Riders are always great, but Wind Chargers for me, I could never believe that this unit was as good as everyone was saying. And in fact, I said this on many shows with Luke. We both kind of thought that it's dangerous territory when a unit that is not that great is getting held up by some other units, and it looks like it's the best unit in the game. Okay, but you play 30 Wind Chargers against an army that can withstand it, and there are plenty of armies that can. People just don't play them in real life, but there are plenty of armies that can. Then you're going to be in trouble, okay? So this army was in a specific spot, I think, that was facilitated by a very elite meta, okay? And then now it's gone up 20. And I think now it's probably awful. For like 10 wind charges for 380 is so expensive for what it does. And I think that what it means is that Lumineth is going to go to Sentinels, okay? Because Sentinels did not go up at all, and Sentinels are not really affected by the -1 to hit and the 5-up crits thing, right? You can still just put crits on them, and then move your 3, probably just go 3 foxes now, or 2 foxes or something, as your Huracan dudes. And you can, shoot with the Sentinels. They're not really affected by the priority target changes, because most of their damage comes from crit auto wound anyway. You're going to take the Sentinels, and then I think the rest of the list, you're going to put some Wardens in now for sure. And I'm not sure about Dawn Riders. They're the one where I'm not sure where they're going to land, because if you're taking Sentinels, then they're not going to get a potentially a -1 to hit off, or a 5-up crits off, and that makes them a little bit weaker. So I'd expect now you're going to see more of a castle build, right, with like Sentinels and Wardens. But my problem with that is I don't think that that's going to actually score many points. I think you're going to have a lot of games where you do actually just lose on objectives. So I'm going to make a rather hot take here, that after these changes, and a lot of other armies getting nerfed, and core changes nerfing them, I think that Lumineth... Where are we? Lumineth. Where's Lumineth? I think that Lumineth are still A tier. Okay. You thought I was going to say B. No. They still have broken abilities, okay? Everything's just more expensive. And this is what happens with Lumineth every edition. That's why I said we're making the same mistake again with Lumineth, where the abilities are broken and they just need to get more expensive. And your army will get really small to the point where you can't score objectives well, and that is the point where the army stops being good. But for now, I think that still the 20 Sentinels is one of the strongest shooting units in the game, and I actually think there are some other units in the book that might see some other looks now. So it's going to be 20 Sentinels, and then I think whatever you pair it with is what we're going to find out, okay? But still a great army, I think. Okay, let's go back and do KO and the Idoneth Deepkin, because those are the armies I missed, right? Where are we? Points. Here. Okay, Idoneth Deepkin. So we thought that this army would be great, and it kind of wasn't. Or at least it's very unpopular. This is one of the most unpopular armies. Which is kind of strange, because I'd expect it to be popular. But maybe a lot of the IDK players play Lumineth. I don't know. Okay, a lot of the good units went down. So I already thought the Leviathan was good. And I also thought that Lotan was good. And I also thought the aspect of the Storm was good. So these units going down is interesting to me. I still think that the army is a little bit stat challenged. I kind of feel like it does a little bit less damage than a lot of the other cavalry-based things in the game. Like if you're going to take a bunch of Ishlean Guard, for example. Let's go look at Ishlean Guard. Idoneth Deepkin. So it's 180 points, alright? But it's only 12 wounds. And, okay, yes, you have 5 at ward if you charge. But 12 wounds on a 4-up save for 180 is quite bad. Yes, you can get the -1 attack, but only on a 3-up. And the damage in combat is relatively weak. And so a lot of other armies are sort of getting like 15 wounds for a similar cost. And so what you're paying with Idoneth Deepkin is you're paying for the strikes first on turn 3 and this kind of thing. But the actual units themselves, I would say, are a little bit weaker. But what makes me worried with Idoneth Deepkin, in terms of the strength, is that the aspect of the Storm in a combat meta is going to be scary, okay? It's going to be scary. So, if you just look at the War Scroll, it doesn't look like there's much going on here. +1 wound, and then you can make a hero go last, and you can use retreat and charge. Okay, but and now I need to remember the names here. I believe it's this. Yes, these two abilities together make for a extremely tanky and annoying unit. So you can only hit him on a 4-up, and basically he ignores weapon abilities other than the companion abilities. So that means that if you're looking to hit him with a normal unit that maybe has crit mortals, so first of all, you're probably going to be -1 attack because you're going to take him in, he's going to be your general. You're going to take an honor guard that can easily sit by him because Idoneth Deepkin is fast. Going to be very hard to kill, even with only 12 wounds, because it's a 3-up save, 5-up ward, and so very good for rally, and this makes it very difficult for him to actually die. So that's one aspect. Now I want to kind of interrogate the thralls a little bit. So I still think for 110, I don't think they're there. I think this sort of elite infantry is very weak at the moment. So I wouldn't expect that the thralls going down 10 points really means that much. But the Leviathan going down 20, and then this aspect of the Storm going down 10, I think is going to make this into a really strong army. Now, the question is just with Deepkin is like, what's the meta going to be like? That's the problem. So if it's a full combat meta with lots of tanky units, I can suspect that Deepkin will have some issues, okay? The control score of Deepkin is one of the major problems. Like, taking objectives off people is very hard. And if you're struggling to kill stuff because the meta is really tanky, then you're going to be in trouble. However, if the meta has a bunch of glass hammers in it, then this is going to be a really strong army because you have lots of ways of... You have some activation wars, you have minuses to attack, you have units that are pretty tanky overall. So, yeah, I would expect that this is probably just going to be B tier, but I would put it like probably here. I really think it has potential if the meta's right to be A tier. I just think that where it currently stands, I'm just not sure. Like, it could be C tier as well, depending on where the meta lands. So we're going to put it here. But the other 3 armies here, I would say, are firmly B tier. This is more like a little bit meta dependent, I would say. Also, if we get into heaps of long range shooting, which I don't think will happen, then this is another good army because the Tirecaster can turn off long range shooting. Alright, KO. So KO have one build at the moment, which is a bunch of Thunderers that redeploy. And I think the priority target chain has hurt them quite a bit. So, I don't know. I just think it's not that good. I would put KO in C tier. I don't rate it personally. Yeah. Compared to the other armies I looked at so far, I think it's firmly weaker than them. Which is good, because they're a horrible army. Okay, Seraphon. Okay, so they did get some points nerfed, so if you were spamming Aggrodon Lancers, then you feel a little bit worse about that. Emphasis on it a little bit. Like, okay, if you ran 12 of them, you're losing, what, 40 points? Not really the biggest change. And then maybe 10 more points for the Scarvet, and probably 10 more points for the Starseer as well, right? Actually, one unit I did want to look at is, so the Old Blood on Foot went down 20, right? And, this one actually might be interesting, I feel like. So the Old Blood on Foot. So, yeah, so +1 to wound for Saurus infantry, and you can chain fight, so he does not completely useless in combat. And he's an okay body, 7 wounds, 4-up save. I kind of feel like maybe he's decent now. And the Saurus warriors also did not really change. Right? They are still at 170, so you might actually see some more Saurus warrior heavy lists. But I just still think the Seraphon's so good. Like, and a lot of these units that went down are, like, not bad. Like, Raptidon Hunters are not bad. The Ark of Sotek Bastillodon is not bad. What else is good here? I mean, Terror Wings. One unit Terror Wings is alright. Okay, the other heroes that went down are not so good, but yeah, there's some positive kind of direction stuff here as well. I still think that this army, especially with this sub-faction, right? The which one is it? No. This one. No. I'm gonna get it eventually. Sunclaw. This one, okay? This one where you can pile in 3 units and do mortal wounds. It's such a strong ability, and it's on both turns, unlike the Gitz one, so yeah. For a tanky army that is a very resilient, does quite a bit of damage, and not at all hurt, I don't think, by the core changes. I think actually it benefited by basically all of them. This is a top of A tier army for me. It actually might end up being S tier as well, but I think that you would expect Seraphon as a melee bash you kind of army will be very strong going forward. Okay, Stormcast Eternals. So we've had some changes here. So Ionis and Kharazai went down 20, and then we saw some changes as well to some kind of less taken heroes. So Neva's gone down 20 in Stormcast, which is interesting. What else has happened? Some of the Dracothian Guard stuff went down. I don't think that matters too much. Maybe the Desolators and Concussors might be worth looking at. If we go into an infantry matter, the Desolators are decent. The Concussors are probably the better pick at the moment. And the Reclusions went down, which might be okay as a singleton, and the Stormdrake Guard went down. I don't really believe in the Stormdrake Guard at the moment. However, I want to say that Kharazai going down 20 is madness. This is madness. Okay, there's no way that Kharazai is not broken now at 480. I'm telling you. And with the Praetors change, where you can use them in reserve. So you can basically like yeet Kharazai 18 forward, turn 1, and then bring the Praetors down behind him. He, in a meta where priority target's been nerfed, and maybe there's going to be less shooting, this guy is going to be impossible to kill. Like, there's going to be so many armies, if you don't run monsters, who are not affected by -1 attacker much. So basically, my rule in my head is, if the highest attack characteristic of any unit in your army is 3, you cannot kill Kharazai. Because you will send them in, and he'll do -2 attacks, and he'll be 3 up save, 5 up ward, okay? And then potentially he could be 2 up save with all out defense, right? There's healing available in Stormcast. You can take multiple Night Vexillers, okay, and spam them. So you could take for example, take 2 Night Vexillers, and you're going to heal 2d3 wounds every hero phase. And this is going to make Kharazai insanely fucking hard to kill. Okay, not to mention Krondys is also good. Okay, so Kharazai, Krondys, amazing. You still have some of the best cavalry in the game. You have Evocats and you have Vanguard Paladors. Both are incredible. You're going to see those. You have some great infantry options, which are just really solid in terms of efficiency. You've got your Quest of Soulsworn. Okay, I actually think that this is probably close to the best army in the game. I would put this S tier now. I think that this is going to be a problem we're going to have to work out how to deal with. Like, how do we deal with Kharazai? Because Kharazai is like almost impossible to kill for a bunch of armies. Like, if you're playing Cities of Sigmar, alright? Like, basically impossible to kill. If you're playing Soulblight Gravelords, basically impossible to kill. If you're playing, I mean, even something like, it might be hard even with Ogres, right? It might even be hard with something like OBR. Like, all of these armies, it could be hard to kill Kharazai, right? And if you're playing on especially a central mission where you have to kill him, like shifting objectives, it's just going to feel like there's nothing you can do. And yeah, they're going to be formidable. Even without Kharazai, if you just look at the units as well, this is an insane army. So, for me, Stormcast is S tier. Alright? They're S tier. I wanted to look at Vandus as well, right? So Vandus, I believe his ability is to add to the control score of warrior chamber units, right? Let me just double check. Vandus Hammerhand. Yes. So, and you can also get +1 to hit with the warrior chamber, which is not very good because they already get that. But the +3 control score is good. It is very good, especially with what are they called? The Quest of Soulsworn. That's one of their kind of weaknesses. So adding +3 would be very strong, I think. So he maybe gets taken. He's actually quite good in combat as well. So the chain fight, I guess, is good in that respect because you get to actually fight with him, and he actually is pretty nice in combat. You get the +1 hit on him as well from the Thunderquake, whatever it's called. So I actually think that he might be worth a pick. Another thing that I think is underrated in Stormcast is this unit here. Basically, it's sort of like easy access to get a 5-up ward with a Lord Arcana Montour along. Like, you just can kind of yeet him in and stand in combat, and the things around you will get a 5-up ward, and that's very strong. And it also gives you some nice little hero phase chips, so another strong unit. Maybe you want to take Krondys if you if you can because of this. But yeah, a very strong unit. So Stormcast S tier. All right, let's go through the rest of order. So we have we went Seraphon, Sylvaneth. Okay, so I put out a tweet where I said I didn't give a fuck about Sylvaneth. Why? Just no one cares about Sylvaneth. Why are you changing Sylvaneth? But I have to say, after seeing them do the rounds, I saw a couple of people playing them. I do think they're pretty good now. The Wildwoods are much easier to keep alive and much easier to put down, and that just makes the army a whole lot more functional. They had some points changes as well. One in the negative direction, because Belthanos went up. Here are we? Yeah, Belthanos did go up 20 points, but we've seen the Tree Lord Ancient, I think especially, is probably worth a look now. Mainly because, I'll show you this. Tree Lord Ancient is worth a look because you can kind of quite easily do this Awakening the Wood thing now to do mortal wounds. That's much easier to do now. Because you can actually set up the Wildwood within the combat range of somebody. So you can set up the Wildwood, do mortal wounds, and then do it again in the, I believe it's the charge phase when it normally does mortal wounds. So, yes, potentially very strong. I think that Sylvaneth, though, is still going to be slightly meta-dependent. I'm going to spam Dryads, and we're going to see where that's going to go, but I think you're probably still maybe bound to taking Alariel. I'm not sure. On that aspect, we'll have to see. But I think, considering they were already pretty decent, I would say they're probably A tier now, Sylvaneth. You know, we actually might have to start caring about this unit. I'm going to just go out on a little bit of a limb and say that they're probably A tier now. Okay, so we have Grand Alliance Chaos. So Khorne has been changed so that, okay, Rathax has been changed so that, what did I want to say? Oh, let's do Beast of Chaos first. Sorry. Let's do Beast of Chaos first. So, Beast of Chaos actually did get some changes where some of their actual good units got cheaper. Like, I thought the Chaos Gargant was already pretty good, and the Shaggoth and the Dragon Ogres were already quite nice. So, them going down is good. I just feel like still, though, the army is a little bit, like squeezing toothpaste out of an almost empty bottle. It just feels like, you know, you're always behind on the board state when you play Beast of Chaos, it almost feels like. So maybe Dragon Ogre spam will be a bit better, but yeah, I'm feeling that as an army, I just feel like it's just kind of lower B sort of vibe. It's fine, but we were all very excited about Beast of Chaos at a certain point because, you know, there was the manifestations are still broken, right? But the army in general, I just feel like it's a little bit outstatted by some other armies. Okay, Khorne though. Khorne is very interesting to me. So I think Khorne was already in a pretty decent spot, but I think still struggled against shooting. Now against potentially a more melee-focused meta, or at least one where shooting is a little bit weaker. That's what I'm calling it. They might be interesting. Now, if it becomes a monster mash meta, I actually think that they're great. This army is very good against monsters. So, could be very nice. A lot of the changes here I don't think mean too much. But the overall direction of the meta is good, and I already thought that this is a B tier army. So I think Khorne, compared to these other armies in B tier, for me, it is a step above. And so I would probably put them at the bottom of A tier. I thought that this was already probably equal or slightly stronger than these armies, but now with the overall direction of the meta and overall more points changes in their favor, I think that they will be stronger. Only a very, very small difference here, like probably in win percent, we're talking like 1 to 2%, but still going to be good. Okay. Next, we have Disciples of Tzeentch. Okay, now Tzeentch did get some points changes in the negative, so the horrors went up, the Lord of Change went up, but then also the Changeling and the Changecaster went down 20, and you were taking one of them anyway. So basically, you're saying that on average, I would say a list has gone up. Let's see, so you're probably going at least 20 horrors, 20 blue horrors, so at least 40 points. 40 to 60 points, something like this, right? The other changes that hurt them is that they were a very good army at pooping out endless spells, and that is a lot worse now. And the other thing that I'm actually slightly worried about with them is that I feel like they're good against shooting armies that can't reliably kill the chickens, and there are a few of those. And also just good against armies where if you can pin them in, they're going to really struggle. This kind of thing. But against armies that fight and well, I'm not really sure. Even with the burning changes, I'm still not really sure. Like, because you don't do any damage, even with the burning changes. You're not doing shit. Especially with the priority target changes in the realm, right? Like, Skyfires are not doing much damage at all. Flamers are not doing much damage at all. Because you have to remember as well, it's not just the priority target changes. You can now all-out defense on cover fire. That's massive. So I'm thinking about, if I'm playing Tzeentch into a Seraphon or into a Stormcast, you know, these armies we've seen so far that are strong, am I really feeling that hot about it? I don't think so, personally. I'm not sold, because now you've also lost your protection from the endless spells, right? It's really easy to just unbind the key one, right? Or banish the key one. I'm not sure. I'm not feeling that this is actually a great army anymore. I'm gonna go a little bit hot take here and say this is a B tier army now. I don't think that against what is going to be good, that this army is good, is what I would say. Now, against a lot of these other armies that have also been nerfed, like, so for example, if you're playing Tzeentch into Lumineth and then Nighthaunt, we'll get to later, those were already pretty good matchups. Now, they're going to be great. But against these Ascendant armies, I think that this is going to be weaker. Okay, that's my prediction. Alright, Hedonites of Slaanesh. So now your Temptation dice isn't just Destiny dice, there's a chance it becomes a 1 or 2. And we've had a whole host of relatively insignificant points changes. So this stuff doesn't matter, and the chariot, yeah, it's just all the shit units, right, that no one cares about. So points changes don't matter, but you've lost prior target. They can defend all that. They can defend against your cover fire. Okay, my problem with Slaanesh is that so the Twin Souls are great, but so the problem is that they're so bad against shooting. That's the problem, right? Like, and the army in general, I feel like, is terrible against shooting. So I still don't think this army's good. I'm sorry, I just don't. I think that it's still, compared to all these armies in B, for me this is a step lower. I think that it's got some kind of skewiness to it, which means that you're going to have some really good games, but as an overall army, I think it's weaker than the other stuff that's in the meta, okay? Maggotkin of Nurgle. Okay, so major buffs here. So a new ability where the ability is not written here, but it's when a unit dies on a 3-up, you can pick another unit to give disease. So when a disease unit dies on a 3-up, you can transfer it to another unit with a 9, which is great. Because now you can do stuff like, so this is like the interesting interactions with Nurgle, right? So you can, so there's kind of like an order you can do stuff in. So let's say so it's all at the end of the turn, right? So it's all kind of the same. So let's say you've killed a unit somehow at the end of the turn. So like a really extreme case would be like you've given something disease, and then what's the case? Sorry, I'm just trying to think of the case. There's a bunch of, I'm just trying to say there's a bunch of orders you can do. There's like really big brain stuff. Like, okay, there's a disease unit. You kill it with this, and then transfer to a unit that's 9 inches that way, that's like around a bunch of other stuff, and then you can do this. Okay, and you can spread and then give potentially your whole opponent's army disease, right? Something like this. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of order sort of plays. Like, you can do the opposite order, I guess, as well, right? Where you can kill something and then you pick a unit 9 away, and then you give everything spread, and then you do the mortal wounds. I guess that's the more typical play, right? So the disease is much easier to spread now. And I think that's going to make the army obviously much better. My problem with the army is still control score, right? Like, for me, it's still hard to get objectives with Nurgle, and I feel like it's still hard to score well with Nurgle. But as an army that fights, I think it's going to be good. I'm not... It was C tier, I would say, and I don't think I can go higher than B for now, but we're going to keep an eye on this army and see where it goes, because it could be, you know, up in the A's. I don't think the S, but up in the A's kind of area. Okay. Next for Chaos. So is that it? Skaven, because they didn't really receive any changes. Okay, so Skaven are weird because we had the new book come out and no one's barely played any games with them. But there have been some things that seem really strong. I would say Vizek, especially with the priority target changes, you're going to see Vizek taken now, for sure. You're going to see 18 rattling guns or 18 weapon teams in Clan Rats. A lot of people are going to run that as well. Yeah. Now, with the shooting in general getting nerfed, the magic in general getting nerfed, I think all of that is positive for Skaven. I think they were already good. I think that this is an A tier army. With the new book. With the old book, they were terrible, but I think now they're probably like up here. I think you're going to see the rattling guns and the Clan Rats, and it's going to be a problem. Yep. Okay. So next, Death. All right. Oh, Slaves to Darkness. Yeah, I don't know why they're not listed on there, but okay, we're gonna do Slaves to Darkness as well. So, apologies. So we have a bunch of points reductions for mostly bad units. Eternus going down 20 is okay. And then I would say the other one that's decent is the where are we? Mutalith Vortex Beast going down 10. I think it's also good. I mean, it's not that much to move the needle, but I think that's a good unit too. But we had some big nerfs. So Be'lakor went up 30, the Chosen went up 10, and I believe the Varangard went up 10 as well. So some decent points nerfs there. Your big Be'lakor list is probably losing 50 points, between 50 and 70 points, depending on what you're taking. It was an A tier army. I think it's still an A tier army. I think it's still gonna have like your struggles versus top tier armies, but that's not slaves. This is slaves. And Archaon I think is gonna be still good, but I don't think it's as good as Stormcast. And they're very similar armies to me, but I still think that Stormcast is better. Yeah, overall than Slaves to Darkness. Okay, finally we got through Chaos. All right, so Death. Flesh Eater Courts basically have no changes. So the Cardinal, I believe, went up slightly, and then the other stuff that went down. Maybe Gormain at 110 is actually decent. Now that's really cheap for what he does. For me now, this is just a better version of the other thing that's the same thing. Like I feel like Soulblight Gravelords is the same army, but I think it's better than Soulblight, but quite a bit now. In a meta though, where maybe we're seeing less shooting and more kind of brawly aspects to it, that might be negative for Feck. But overall, I'd still think it's like B. It's just like good, but not. I mean, a lot of these like melee infantry armies in the middle are kind of in a similar spot to me. Nighthaunt. Okay, so Nighthaunt have been massively nerfed. They have a bunch of points changes that are bad, like very bad, bad to very bad. The Dreadblade Harrows losing the move in both turns. You can only do the run and charge with one unit and only in your turn now. It's a lot weaker. Like, and I'm talking like a lot. And already I felt like it was a bit overrated. I think it's B tier now. Like, that sounds insane, but like, this got the biggest nerfs out of all of them, and I think that it's just I feel like it's going to almost lose to like just regular bog standard armies now. I feel like it's just gotten absolutely insanely nerfed. You're still going to have some kind of good turns where you go in and you kill a bunch of stuff, but I think now with all the points changes as well, you're going to get hit back so hard. Yeah, I think it's a worry for Nighthaunt now. That seems insane to put them all the way in B, but like you need to understand that losing run and charge for your whole army is like, that's like an atomic level change. That's like not small at all. So I think they're going to be a lot weaker now. It's gigantic nerfs for sure. Okay, another gigantic nerf, Soulblight Gravelords. I think this was uncalled for too. I know they had a good win rate, but in the competitive scene, I don't think anyone was saying that this was an insane army by any means. It was good, but the changes here are just... So Manfred went up 20, and a lot of stuff that went down just wasn't taken. And then the Black Knights going up 20 is that's brutal. I don't think that they're playable at all now. To me, they were already in a situation where if they ever got tagged, they were just useless. So, man, I think Soulblight's just not great now. I already thought that they were kind of a bit fraud, and then now if we're talking about the meta where everyone's going to be taking -1 attack, right? That's awful for Soulblight, terrible. Now, you might go towards the Blood Knight sort of thing, but I just think that that's worse than other armies that can do the same thing. I just think it's not going to be good now, which is just... I feel like it's a bit uncalled for. The army was good, but I feel like a lot of the reason it was good is because it forced people to take a Horde army, and Horde armies were actually quite good. Flooding the board with models on 6 objectives is just good, right? But people were playing, I think, much too elite in the previous pack, so people need to play more bundles. But Soulblight, yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, to see if they can recover from this. Because, I mean, Torgi got nerfed as well. Yeah, there's just massive nerfs to Soulblight that fundamentally break the army. OBR got buffs all across the board, and shooting getting nerfed is amazing for them. Okay, the manifestation changes hit them, but I would say that the Bone Tithe Nexus is that the right thing? No. What's it called? What's the name of the endless spell? The good one? Shrieker. Bone Tithe Shrieker. There we go. This thing is what you want to cast, okay? And the other manifestations are just bonuses. So I would say that given this army was already great, and we were kind of moving away from Nagash towards better builds, as an army in terms of... So for me, as an army that fights... Just with, Death Riders didn't change, right? As an army that fights, it's insane. It's just stat blocks. It's probably the best army in the game with Stormcast, right? Can it play the 6 objective missions or the 8 objective mission? That's remains to be seen. But I think with the Death Riders, it's going to be possible. I just think it's going to be S tier. I just do. You're talking about a meta where we're going towards a brawling meta, less shooting. I mean, this army's already good against shooting anyway, but, we're talking about just a meta where people fight each other. I feel like that's going to be really good for this army. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be super good. Because, you're talking about, thinking about people tagging each other. That's going to be massive now, right? To stop, charge bonuses and this kind of thing. Death Riders have some immunity to that. You have lots of save bonus. You have save bonus from... Catacross. You can now stack that with all-out defense in the shooting phase to block off cover fire. You have just a 5-up ward button in combat. I think it's going to be difficult for armies to deal with this army, for sure. Okay. So. Destruction. Okay, Bonesplitterz, so they're changed for them. So, Destruction in general, Kragnos went down 100 points and doesn't 3d6 counter charge, which is just better than him being 100 points more expensive. It's just a flat buff, okay? He's been buffed massively too by the nerfs to shooting, because he's weak against shooting, fundamentally. Bonesplitterz, though, are still bad. Alright, they still do no damage, and still die. They're bad. In fact, I would say they're bin. I would say they're really bad, to be honest. Okay. I thought they would be good, I really did. I think in the first tier list I did A, but I've played a bunch of games with and against them now. They're just not good. Okay, Gitz. Trug's got nerfed. I don't give a fuck. You are all frauds. You guys are so fraudulent. You managed to get Trug nerfed. Why are you playing Trugs? What are you doing? We all know that Stabbers are better and Squigs are better. What are we playing Trug for? He's terrible. For 380 points though. Yuck. You managed to get Fellwater Troggus nerfed. Fellwater Trogs. Who the fuck was taking Fellwater Trogs? And now all my units got buffed. So the shooters went down 10. That's okay. They're probably still bad because they're nerf pyro target. But Splatter's going down 10. Nice. Kragnos going down 100. Nice. So you can now fit Kragnos, 3 Gobblapaloozas, Spore Splatter Fanatics, Snufflers, and 80 Stabbers, and a Loon Boss. That now fits. This army, I don't think I've never lost for this army. I don't understand why no one is playing Kragnos and Stabbers. Play Kragnos and Stabbers. Please. Please play it. Please. Because I feel like I'm going insane. Because I feel like when I play it, it feels like the strongest army in the game. But when other people play it, well, no one else is playing it. So I don't know what you guys think. Because you don't play it. Play it. Stop playing Trogs. Play fucking Stabbers. Please. They're so good. Please. Please, someone play them. But just do me a favor. If you play them, here's the thing. What would be great for me, for my ego, is if you could play them and do really badly with them so they never get nerfed and everyone thinks they're bad and I'll keep winning with them. Alright? That's, for my ego, that's going to be the best thing. But for the state of the world and what I think is actually correct, I don't think I'm some Warhammer super genius. I think this army's insane. Other people should play it and find out how strong it is, and then it will get nerfed, and then I can move on. We can all move on. Alright. Good. Sounds good. But Gitz, I think, will be insane. You're going to see Squigs as well, like Kragnos and Squigs, or just Squigs. You're going to see a mixed list with Stabbers and Squigs. But Trogs, 380 for 6 Rock Guts, I still think is good, but the whole spammy package thing, I don't think is good. Is where I'm at. Okay, Ironjawz. So, a bunch of points changes that mostly don't matter. So, the Anvil Smasher going down 30 does. The other ones, I'm not really sure. And the Mega Boss, 20, okay... maybe you're going to take him. But the bigger change is you can now War in every turn as long as you do it with a different hero. That's actually... Oh, every one of your turns, I believe. It has to be your turn. But still. That's actually pretty big, I would say. Yeah. And the prior target changes going down. Now, you all know, I am a famous Ironjawz hater, but... if we're taking Kragnos, it's a pretty good army to take him in, you know. And a lot of the things in this army have gone down in points. It is still insanely slow, but I think it's actually going to be pretty good, you know. I actually think it's probably going to be B tier now. I think that after this, it's actually going to be alright, you know. Sons of Behemat have basically no change. Okay, Kragnos went down, but whatever. They're the worst army in the game. Let's move on. Alright. they're terrible, alright? Don't play... The Guardians are awful. They're just terrible. They have some games where I feel like, you know, against some of these B tier armies, you won't feel alright, but... Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think this army's all... I mean, how, like... How do you deal with, like... Stormcast and stuff? I don't know, man. You're just gonna get murdered, no? I don't know. You're just so squishy now, too. Sons of Behemat. Ogor Mawtribes. Okay, so... question I've been asked. Do I think that Beastclaw Raiders is a thing? No, because they buffed all the units that are bad, so no. Do I think that Gluttons are that much worse? No, I still think that's pretty good. Yeah, and then Iron Guts, I think, are great. But is it a top tier army? No. In fact, I think it's probably just straight B again. It's better than Basic. I'm going to move Basic House down to C. This is worse than this. Yeah, it's probably down here. Probably similar spot as Ironjawz. We can put Nighthaunt a bit further up. Let's put it there. And then Kruleboyz. Kruleboyz. I have a slightly hot take here. I don't think this army is good. As people are saying, I think it's a good army, but I don't think it's reliable enough for me to put it A tier. I think it will feel good sometimes, but I do feel like into a melee meta, is this a good army? Like, are you trading with this army? I feel like you're going in and you're killing one unit and then you're getting obliterated, and that's just like the play pattern of this army. And if the 2-ups and 3-ups start failing at some point, you start to lose. With that said, monster killers didn't go down, but the -1 attack battalion being everywhere is super bad. I don't know. I reckon it's not good. I reckon it's C. Sorry. I don't think it's good. Shooting being in the meta is theoretically good for this army, so it maybe going out's bad. -1 attack everywhere is bad. It's too slow. I don't like it. Alright. So that's where I'm at. I think Stormcast is the best army in the game, to be honest. But there's so much. I think this, this top 6, you're seeing a pattern here, which is that high saves are good. High saves, and then the best Horde armies are going to be great. I think that, some of these B tier armies, I think Daughters of Khaine actually has the potential to be A or even S, depending on like what the build sorts out to be. But for now, that's kind of where I'm at. So that's the tier list. I want to say at the end of this, I'm really positive about the changes they've made. I still believe that there's some work they need to do, but a lot of the things that I complained about, they've addressed. We're just going to enter into what I think is a different mode of toxicity that is not as bad, which is like stat hammer, I think is where we're headed towards now, which is like, okay, shooting's worse, magic's worse, so what are the armies that have the most points efficient stats, right? Because the reason we weren't spamming before is because there were certain singleton mechanics in the game, like we had, your singleton countercast, which are still there, your singleton power through, your singleton, by singleton I mean you can only use it once, your single prio target and counter shoot, and then the nature of battalions as well. But now I think the game's going to open up. Like, you might actually see some auxiliary armies out there that are doing well, right? Because now the necessity for being, for example, like 3-drop is going to be really low value, because a lot of people are just going to jam everything in 2-drop. So if you're not 3-drop, I just feel like you might... Okay, giving away command points bad, but if it helps your army to not have to take heroes, which for some armies it really does, like Gitz for example, I can see some Gitz armies, if you don't take Kragnos, might just say fuck it and take 1 hero. Like, you might take 1 Loon Boss, and then that is like Scragrot or a Web Spinner Shaman on Ragnarok Spider. I actually think is pretty good now. That might be your 1 hero, and then you just run a normal army, and that's like, you just deal with the 1 command point, and that's maybe the way you're going to play Gitz now. I'm going to have a go at doing that for sure, because I think it has the potential. Because you look at it and it's like, Loon Boss, 130 points, and I can give Stabbers +1 to wound on a 2-up. Like, that's just not worth 20 Stabbers. It's just not, right? So, and you have ways to deny command points, right? With what do I want to say? With the Goldpalooza. So, yep, you're going to see that. So I'm interested to see where it pans out, but let me know what you guys think, and I look forward to seeing what list you come up with, where the meta goes. I will be running a Release the Beast soon, and I will see you all around. So until then, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in my next iteration of Warhammer Villainy. Bye.